morning, everybody. This is the Pitchfork Chronicles. I am Uncle Tats, as I am now being known all over the place. Donald is with me and Rob, and that was the most embarrassing weekend of Yankee baseball I've ever seen. And it's gotten so comical, I have no point but to laugh. And it's just embarrassing. And Rob, you put a tweet out that this team is cursed. And it made me want to really dive into that because there's no point in really breaking down the analysis of the games. We all saw it. We all we all have to go out today and buy new TVs because of it. So when you look at this team overall, what is it really that they're cursed, broken, or is just everybody just passed us by? I think that's the key question.
Well, the realistic thing is we're just a really bad team right now. That's the realistic answer. And it's not because, obviously we're missing so many players from the lineup that are going to help out, but that's the easy excuse to make. Right now, we're just a really bad team, and it can get better when we get healthy, but right now there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. But no, I can't say that we're not cursed because we finally see Jake Bauers and he gets hurt immediately before taking a swing. And guess who takes his place? It's like that one person, inmate number 7604, has a voodoo doll over everybody that could potentially take his place. So Oswaldo Cabrera took his spot, can't hit anymore. Calhoun took his spot, he's not good. Cordero was lighting it up, conveniently stops hitting. I'm telling you, Aaron Hicks is the inmate. He's the curse. You get rid of him, maybe you can fix things. I don't know. I'm trying to find some humor to it. Obviously, it's really bad right now, but you expect this when your lineup has two real hitters, and you combine that with three rookies you're hoping to get going along the way, and then a bunch of nobodies. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of games when you're relying on Hicks and IKF and the catchers that both provide no offense, and Calhoun, and you're trying to mix and match. You need Judge, you need Stanton, you need Bader, and maybe even Josh Donaldson to a degree, and maybe this offense will put up some more runs. But if you're expecting us to score like 6-7 runs a game with this offense, and you need to come back down to reality. It's just a really bad time right now, and hopefully we can get healthy and start winning some games. But yeah, right now it's frustrating to watch. We're going to still watch, but it's a frustrating time.
Yeah, Donald, I want to get your take, but I want to at least, Mazda sent me a list of all the guys that are on the IL, and it's a long freaking list. But while I pull that up, before I get into, before you start going into your take on it, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's in the chat. The chat was going about 5 minutes before we even went live. So shout out to Fortrain, shout out to Medina, shout out to FJ, Sunil. We appreciate you guys getting here nice and early with us. Donald, what is your take on this team overall? Is it cursed, or are we really that bad?
Roster construction starts and ends with that, really. The only, well, obviously Judge's injury and Stanton's injury has completely just destroyed this team. Like, it's unwatchable. There's no reason to watch right now until Judge turns up, because we can't score a run without Aaron Judge. So that's a start, right? The fact that we're completely 100% solely reliant on one guy, right? But the proof was in the pudding, as you'd like to say, when Stanton got hurt. Once Stanton got hurt, this train went so off the rails and is careening off a cliff. So we're talking about one injury has completely derailed the whole thing, right? And this is a dude that's been injured a lot since 2018, as we know, at least 50% of the time, which again goes down to roster construction, because Brian Cashman didn't have a plan B to Stanton's often injury problems. I mean, the Yankees are scared to have Stanton play the outfield, yet they didn't really have they didn't have a backup to him, and that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, they know that he has hurt a lot. They're scared to play him in the outfield, and then yet they didn't have a fourth outfielder. But let's forget about fourth outfielder. They don't have a left fielder. They went into this season without a left fielder. They have 77 infielders, and they don't have any outfielders apart from Aaron Judge.
Yeah,
that makes no sense to me whatsoever. You've got two infielders playing the outfield right now, an IKF and an Aussie. Right? I mean, that says it all. This is the New York Yankees. I don't even think the Oakland A's would have a situation where they have no outfielders playing the outfield right now. That makes unbelievable no sense.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. Aaron Hicks is obviously a joke. We know that he's a joke. And I do think that there's some sort of crazy curse because we're trying to get rid of him like nothing on earth, and he keeps coming back like a bad penny. I've never seen quite anything like it. He's like, dude, he just turns up in your nightmares. He's like the clown from It. You know what I mean? He just keeps turning up, and he ain't getting rid of him. I don't even know how we get rid of Aaron Hicks. I wouldn't be surprised if we DFA'd him. He'd come back the next day. Like there's just no getting rid of this guy, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. But this team is so bad. I can't even call them cursed because they're just bad. You see, the thing is, you're the architect of your own luck. You're the architect of your own luck, and the truth is, the Yankees don't deserve luck because they've completely mismanaged this roster. Here's what it comes down to. Brian Cashman spent the entire offseason trying to blame Yankee fans for the sweep and for the boos and for the struggles, right? He thought that he could orchestrate the whole thing, that it was all Yankee fans' fault, right? All Yankee fans' fault, all injuries' fault, right? So he decided to just stand pat and do absolutely nothing this offseason and just frame it that it was all Yankee fans' fault, and that was the issue, right? Well, we're now into the season, and it's a complete and utter disaster, complete shit show. Everything's wrong, everything's bad, complete mess. And who are you blaming now? Oh, injuries again, but you can't really blame the Yankee fans. So it really does come. I really do think it all comes down to Brian Cashman. It really does. It starts and ends with it.
You know, talking with Halal last night, he had made a comment that really stuck out, where he said, you know, every other team's plan B is Cashman's plan A, and that's a problem. And I thought that was absolutely true. So it really comes down to the roster construction. Now let's look at this list, and I'm gonna go in the order of when they went on the IL officially. All right. So as of March 30th, we lost Luis Hill and Scott Efros. April 3rd, we lost Frankie Montas. April 18th, Stanton. 21st, we lost Bader and Donaldson. 24th, we lost Rodon. The 25th, Brewer, Rodvet. I don't even know what the guy looks like.
Me neither.
Then April 26th, Tommy Canley. 27th, Loizaga. The 29th, Trevino. I mean, this list is crazy. Bowers, Severino, Judge. I mean, it's unreal.
Those dates seem very
updated injury updates. Updated.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say
I missed that word when I was first starting to scroll.
Yeah, Rodon didn't throw a pitch for us this year. So but you think about it, it's bad.
When you look at it, I mean, that's a major league team right there on the freaking IL, and no wonder why we're stuck at the bottom. You know, but when you have those, if you inject those players into what we have now, it's a completely different team. It doesn't mean that we'll automatically manufacture a different result, but at least there's something to work with. At least that you have a roster that you have, you could have faith in that they'll come out of this. What we have now, there's no light at the end of the tunnel for this.
No. And to go back to the GM, I mean, I won't ever say he's a bottom five like certain people would say, but this is why we wanted to move on from him. And we gave him a 4-year extension. So as much praise as we gave Hal Steinbrenner this offseason for getting the Judge deal done, and thankfully he did, because you're seeing what would happen if we didn't get that deal done, we'd probably have about 4 wins right now. So, but the fact that he was given a 4-year extension, it tells you that the front office is completely inept, and it doesn't matter who we bring in to help Cashman, because it's still the same issues that we've been dealing with for a while. And This is why I was really upset we didn't bring back Benintendi initially. I was like, because there was no other real options. You think about Profar, he's slightly better than what we have right now. Peralta's terrible for the Dodgers. I don't think Brantley's been playing for the Astros. He's always hurt. And Conforto's been okay at times for San Francisco. So the options were either Benintendi or the minor league signings we did make, and we're seeing that right now. Calhoun is okay lately, but he's not a good hitter overall. He's not a guy you rely on, so you can't be like, oh, at least it worked out. No, because it hasn't worked out. He's not hitting for you. He's not really doing anything. Cordero was good for a week, and now he's gone. We know that Hicks isn't good. Brian Reynolds was never a realistic option because the Pirates' asking price was ridiculous, and they just extended him anyway. So the fact that we didn't bring back Benintendi, when if they just simply let IKF walk and gave that extra money to Benintendi, we'd have a left fielder right now and a 300 hitter in our lineup. And things will be a lot more brighter if when we get Judge, Stanton, and Bader back, because guess what? You have a DH, you have a right fielder, you have a center fielder, and you have a good left fielder. And there'd be some length to this lineup that you can survive the likes of Volpe and Peraza and Cabrera going through their struggles, going through their rookie struggles, because those are to be expected. But Ortega, we never even used him. He didn't have a good spring. But we're relying on, like Donald said, infielders to play the outfield. Even Jake Bowers is an infielder. He's a first baseman playing the outfield, and he got hurt immediately. So it's bad construction of the roster, and this is why we all wanted to move on from Cashman. Do I think he's the worst GM in baseball? No, because you don't win. You don't have as many wins as he has. You don't make the playoffs as many times and be a bottom five GM. But is he a championship winning GM? No, he's done it once on a team that was his. So it was time to move on long ago, and we're going to be stuck with it for 4 years because he's not changing his ways. Remember, he said it, the process is more important.
Exactly.
His process apparently this is his process. When players get hurt, you got to survive it. But how can you justify your starting center fielder essentially being Isaiah Kiner-Falefa right now, who's a below 200 hitter? Everybody else besides DJ and Rizzo are either streaky like Torres, or just they're going through the rookie struggles like the three rookies, or just not good hitters like both of our catchers and the rest of our options offensively. So again, am I surprised we're playing like this? No, because we don't have a lineup. We have 2 good hitters and 7 either streaky or struggling or just bad. And that's recipe for disaster. And guess where we are? Disaster.
100,000,000,000%. It's not even worth watching an inning until Aaron Judge comes back. But that's purely because the Yankees haven't got any team around them, man. I mean, like, they've got 1.5 power hitters on their roster. Stanton, who's now injured, and Judge, who's now injured. So you got Rizzo and you got DJ LeMahieu are your only 2 good, technically good batters left. And then the rest is as you say, rookies, rookie struggles, terrible baseball players, even worse baseball players, some of the worst baseball players in baseball, and then streaky players. And that's your lineup. So, I mean, it's really, really unbelievable. How could they even build this roster? But the thing is, we were saying this the entire offseason. I know I was, and certainly a lot of content creators were. We were saying this. We were like, we really need to get a left fielder in here. Why are we running this whole thing back? This doesn't make sense. Like, it was clear last year that the idea of having 77 infielders and barely a couple of outfielders actually that didn't work. But Brian Cashman, because he's much smarter than us and we're all stupid, wrote it back. Because as you say, Rob, he actually did say process over wins. As long as the process is good, that's all that matters. What is this process? I want to know what this process is. Like, how could you go through this roster and think, this is a great idea. We're just going to put IKF in a center field. We're not going to have a left fielder. We're just going to try a bunch of infielders to try left field. We'll see how that goes. Like, what was the process? Oh, we don't need a bench. Bench doesn't matter. We're good without a bench. We can just leave the bench alone. Because we got the worst bench in the world now. I've never seen a worse bench. You look at our bench. who is Aaron Boone going to use as a pinch hitter? Like, they all stink.
It's not like you have a bench. Like, if this was the bench with a healthy, productive team, you can live with it until you're able to, until a move fell into your lap where you needed to make an adjustment. But when you have to use your bench as your regular everyday players, that's where the process shows its flaw. That's the problem. When we have to rely now on IKF playing center field, which we all laughed at, but it's not like he's making a mockery of it. IKF is putting the work in. I'll give him that. But we know that this is not a long-term solution. I made a joke with Jason on 161 yesterday. At this point, just bring freaking Gardner back and put him in left field. At least the guy stayed healthy his career.
Yeah, but like, even if, again, we're just talking about one simple move, right? Just signing Benintendi would have been so much of a difference maker because IKF's not here, and your bench is Oswaldo, Higgy, I guess Donaldson / Torres / LeMahieu because they'd still have those three, and then anybody else, right? Probably Aaron Hicks, but if they should have moved on from him long ago. But that would have been your bench, and that's a lot more reasonable than what we have right now. And injuries probably still occur, but at least you know that with those injuries, okay, Cabrera can take over for Judge, and we can use Donaldson as a DH. And the fact that Donaldson's mystery injury I don't know what's going on with him. I'm kind of glad he's not here, but I could certainly see how his bat would be an upgrade to the likes of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa right now. So this is going back, and it all points back to last season when they made that trade with the Twins. And every time we talk about Brian Cashman, we continue to go back in time, get in our DeLorean, and look back at that awful trade that occurred January after the lockout. Terrible idea, terrible trade, and we're still seeing the repercussions from it now because we could have Gio Urshela still on this team right now, a lot more money. We'd probably be able to sign Benintendi back and still be under that tax threshold. And just that one trade derailed so much of what this team could have done the following offseason. Look at all the players they passed up on in past years because of the money and the fact that they didn't sign a shortstop. I know I love Volpe, but the fact that they didn't sign multiple outfielders like a Kyle Schwarber. Imagine having his bat in this lineup right now. I know he'd be a DH, but whatever. If the Phillies can play him, so could we. There's so many different bats they've passed up on. And this is going way back years and years, but everything points back to that one guy who we all agreed should have been moved on from, but he's here for another 4 years. So it goes to the top, and they're going to continue to point fingers at everybody but themselves. It's been a terrible month, and this is to be expected when your team is this injured, and this is who you're relying on for a starting lineup every night. And I can't put the blame on the manager right now either because it'd be tough for anybody to win with this team. But when he comes out and says, I think we came out of the road trip pretty well, you didn't. Just call it what it is. Stop trying to find the positives. Be like, it was a bad road trip. We got to figure things out. And what he said that to a degree, but then to say that I think we ended it off well when you lost 15-2 or whatever it was yesterday. You can't say that. Those things are going to piss fans off. They're going to piss people off. So just be like, we got to get better. And just, even though we know that's the most generic response you can have, at least the fans would be like, oh, he's saying what we're saying, basically. We need to get better, and we need to do it fast because we're 8 games back and we're in last place. Season's not over yet, but wild card is probably your best bet at this point because Tampa Bay isn't slowing down.
Nope.
Baltimore's really good. Toronto's really good. And Boston's much better than we are right now, so at least offensively. They got to get going fast. And there's nothing. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Once again, unless Judge is coming back today, which he won't be, there really isn't no saving grace.
Judge back, they don't have any kind of lineup around him.
Right.
We were terrible with Aaron Judge, right? And that's what's scary. See, Brian Cashman pointed to the fact that the Yankees led the league in runs last year, right? As a reason to roll it back, right? Plus the injuries excuse, right? But here's why Brian Cashman isn't smart. He had to rely. The reason why we led the league in runs last year is because Aaron Judge basically himself did that, right? He had one of the greatest seasons in the history of baseball, which happens once in a generation. That kind of season happens once in a generation. It doesn't keep happening. So their analytics gurus and Brian Cashman didn't account for the fact that Aaron Judge inevitably is not going to have the greatest season in a generation right after the past great season in a generation. It doesn't happen 2 years in a row. There's going to be a little bit of a downslide. He might even hit 50 home runs, which would be incredible this year, right? But he's not going to basically do everything incredibly like he did last year. It's not normal. It's not like, unless you're a machine or unless you're playing MLB The Show, that doesn't happen. So then you look at the rest of the lineup. I mean, where are you expecting to have this massive season from? Rizzo, yeah, I could see that. DJ LeMahieu, I mean, he's more of a leadoff hitter at this point. I think he's more of a guy that's going to get you clutch RBIs with runners in scoring position and a guy that gets on base. I think that's his job. He's not an RBI machine. So then you go through the rest of the order. Stanton, he's hurt a lot. The Yankees just want to manage Stanton at this point and hope that he's going to be healthy for October. So, if he gives you 30 to 40, that you're delighted, home runs. You go through the rest of it, no one else is capable of doing that. So that's your lineup. So where are they expecting to lead the league in runs this year with that lineup, man? They've got Ozzie Cabrera, who's a sophomore. Sophomore slumps happen, man. That's why it's called a sophomore slump, right? Volpe, he barely had any time in AAA, so he needs time in the majors. He's going to need a lot of time, right? And that's it. So where are you expecting this massive season from? It just doesn't make sense. Like, where are they? Like, what were they thinking? What was their thinking behind this? Bader is more of a defensive center fielder than an offensive center fielder. So again, what is it that we're really expecting? Again, like, you just go through this and their plan didn't make sense and it's crumbled at the first injury. Brian Cashman got a 4-year deal for two of the worst trades in the history of the New York Yankees. And that is not hyperbole. The Montas trade and the Josh Donaldson and IKF trade is one of the worst trades we've ever had.
Yeah, that crippled the growth of everything.
It did.
That took away all the progression that we were making and all the hopes that we were having. Because if you don't make those moves, and you have, an Urshela in the infield to work with, and even his at bat, he's not an all-star offensive player, but he's a contact hitter, which is what we need. But the problem is Cashman put too much. He banked too much on the complementary players in a lineup, as opposed to putting in your superstars. We have Judge, we have Rizzo, we have Stanton, but that's only 3 out of the 9. He needed to do more, and he did not do that.
Gio Urshela would be our best hitter right now.
Yeah,
like that. That's just a fact. He's the guy's hitting, I think, like right under 300. I know he's right around or at 300. He'd be our best hitter right now, aside from Rizzo. Like, so again, when the trade was made and you asked, like, what was your response? I said it was weird because I saw what they were trying to do because Donaldson had the power over Urshela, but we didn't need the upgrade at third base. We didn't need it. We didn't need it to get another third baseman to play shortstop because that's what Gio Urshela was going to do. So, again, it all points back to that trade. And then you look at the Montas trade. Obviously, it was terrible because look at how it worked out. I really wish we had Ken Waldichuk right now. The other guys, I'm hoping for the best for them. But the one guy that I would love to have right now is Waldichuk. But, again, Montas barely pitched for us last year. When he did, he wasn't good. And he hasn't pitched for us this year. You look at our big signing that wasn't Aaron Judge. He hasn't pitched for us yet. So everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong. And this is what the team is right now because, again, Stanton's not coming back tomorrow or next week or the week after. He's still got another month at least. Judge might need – I don't know why they haven't IL'd him yet just to make sure that he's 100% when he does come back because he's not going to be back today. And if they have to IL him, he's going to be gone for another week. So just get it over with. This way, when he's back, he's 100%. Bader won't be back until May 5th. But even then, when you get Bader back, what's he really going to do for this lineup? So when it's at full strength, yeah, it's a lot more lengthened than you can rely on. You can deal with the rookie struggles and the sophomore slumps. You can deal with that because you have 6 out of your 9 that are, or 5 out of your 9 that are going to be reliable. And Volpe's been a lot better lately. But Peraza's been struggling. Cabrera's been terrible. Let's just call it what it is. Cabrera's been really, really bad. But I'm going to let him get more time before I make a judgment call on him. Like we don't have anybody else anyway in the minor leagues right now besides Dunham that could come up and maybe provide some offense. But even then, he's just one guy out of a lineup that needs seven guys to really help it out right now. So it's not like Dunham's going to make this team score 10 runs because he's another rookie that would probably go through the rookie struggles. So guess what? That's 4 young players that you're going to have to deal with the rookie struggles with. So there really is no end in sight. And it doesn't matter because Dunham would probably come up and get hurt anyway swinging the bat because Aaron Hicks has a voodoo doll on him as well. So he's going to keep playing. And there's no answer. There is no answer. We just have to get healthy. And this is the one time where the injury excuse does come into effect because our 2 best players are hurt. But you could have constructed this roster better. At least had a backup plan. Like, I don't know why they let Ortega walk. I would rather him right now over Hicks, over Calhoun. But even then, what is he going to really do? So we don't really have another.
It's just it's just another piece to just plug in and cross your fingers. And that's the problem is Cashman thinks that those are the moves that need to be made because of his process. And it's not. It's all it's doing is pushing the Yankees further away from achieving their goal and pissing all of us off. And I think that's his process. It's to push the Yankees back and to piss us off. Because that's all he's done for the last few years, especially with a lot of these trades.
Do you know what this kind of reminds me of? This reminds me of the season where we had Ian Kennedy and Phil Hughes and Joba Chamberlain all in the starting rotation. Do you remember that?
Yep.
It was like 07 or something like that.
Yes.
7, 8, in there. Yeah.
It reminds me of that because they didn't have any kind of team around them. And so there was an unrealistic amount of pressure on Phil Hughes and Ian Kennedy because they didn't have anyone around them. And that's what I'm getting, the very similar vibes from that to this year. It's like there's an unrealistic amount of pressure on Volpe, Peraza, and Ozzy Cabrera because there's no depth to this team, and it just kind of reminds me. 2008. It kind of reminds me of that. I just get that feeling.
It's funny because you bring up Kennedy. They're putting a lot of pressure on the wrong group of people. And it's really it's hindering their productivity. But think of all the former Yankees that we've had to see on this road trip that just came back and bit us in the ass. I almost forgot that Ian Kennedy was still even pitching. And he got through an easy 1-2-3 inning on us in his 18th season. This offense could not even touch him. That's just how broken this team looks. And that was when I started to just laugh. And I'm looking at the score and I'm like, I can't. She's my wife. Kelly's like, "Are you still watching?" I'm like, I just can't turn it off at this point. I just got to see how bad this gets. That's where it's gotten to watching these games. It's waiting for the I knew that was coming, type of moment, and it's not in a positive way.
No.
Yeah, it's terrible because, again, who was really out there realistic? Like even Dalton Varsho has been bad for the Blue Jays. But you think about the past Yankees, that Joey Gallo's been semi-decent for the Twins, and he kicked our ass a few weeks ago. But, I mean, who else had – like Benintendi's been great for Chicago, and they suck. So, I mean, I guess he made a bad decision to go there. I don't know what they're doing, but they let certain guys go, and Gallo was terrible here, so obviously you had to get rid of him. But again, I'm just trying to like look at the free agents that were available this year who really would have made a difference on the roster right now besides Benintendi and maybe Conforto, because Profar has been semi-okay for Colorado. He'd be great for us because our stats are so bad, but we have a AAA lineup. Let's call it what it is. It's a AAA lineup with two good hitters in it. Like, this is what teams that are going through a rebuilding phase are going to do. And we're trying to go win a World Series. So we're going to waste another year of prime Garrett Cole, prime Aaron Judge. So, I mean, can things get better? Absolutely, because we're going to get healthier and we're going to win more games down the stretch. But do you look at the way this April, I'm surprised we have 15 wins. I'm shocked we have 15 wins.
Yep. Astonished. The first week of the year was okay. And ever since then, it was just an absolute disaster. It barely won a game since. But it does come down to the roster construction. So I'm not going to blame Aaron Boone overly, but I will blame him for the fact that the energy is not there. No. Like, each game, like, it looks like they're defeated from the very first pitch. You know, I don't get any energy. I know, like, the other side of the opinion would be, oh, well, I mean, it's easy to look like they don't care when, you know, they don't hit and they're struggling to hit and stuff like that. But no, you can tell, man. You can tell when players are just going through the motions. And a lot of our guys are. They just look dead, right? Barring one or two. They just look completely dead. And that's on Aaron Boone, man, because Aaron Boone should at least be getting these guys to be playing incredibly hard, but they're not really. Let's call it fair. Like, there's a lot of games where they don't look interested. And there's a lot of losses this past week where you could say some of it was effort-based because the effort isn't there. And it starts with Aaron Hicks because he looks like he just lounges around. He doesn't run out fly balls. He just kind of wanders around, walks around to it, and when they ground out, they just walk to first base. Like, there's just genuine lack of effort. That's what I'm seeing. And so when Aaron Boone said that he liked to compete when they lost 15-2 yesterday, is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. And I get that, you know, your manager wants to defend his players, but there has to be accountability, man. There has to be. It can't be just so black and white where, oh, I'll defend my guys to the very end, you know, even when they're losing 15-2. How about you just find a little bit of middle ground and just say, listen, this is not the standard of the New York Yankees. These guys are not playing to the way that these pinstripes mean to people. This is not acceptable. We will get this fixed. I'll do whatever I can to get this thing fixed. That's all I need to hear from my manager. You know, but he doesn't do it. He's like, I really like to compete today. Like, yeah, what are you looking at? You know, I really like the way we closed the game. Thought we closed the game out really well. You guys got outscored 11-1 from the 5th inning. We're not stupid. Like, do you think that we're born yesterday? Like, we're not stupid. I know that they think that we're stupid, but we're really not. And it's like embarrassing. Oh, we closed the game out really well. You got outscored 11-1. From the 5th inning. That is not closing the game out well. What the fuck are you watching? And stop insulting my intelligence. Stop insulting all our intelligence. Stop insulting the fan base intelligence that this was a really good competitive game. That is an embarrassment. I will not accept that from any manager. I don't care what team that you represent. I don't care what logo you wear on your hat. That is not acceptable. If you were a manager of the Oakland A's and you said, really like to compete today, and you lost 15-2, people would laugh at you, right? So if you're the manager of the New York Yankees and you say you really like to compete today, that's an embarrassment, and it's shameful. And he should be ashamed of himself. It really is. That's an embarrassment what he said yesterday. Oh, really like to compete today. Get the fuck out of here.
All right, it makes you want, like, what team was he watching? Was he talking about the Rangers offense? Because it sure as hell wasn't ours. It wasn't the way we performed yesterday. But it's one thing to go through a bad stretch, right? But it's another to it's completely different when you're playing like you don't even want to be there. You said these players, they're going into these games already defeated. The confidence is shot. And there's like we keep saying, we've mentioned this phrase a couple of times because it's true. There's no light at the end of the tunnel coming right now, especially if you don't know how long you're going to have Judge out. You don't know what we know it's going to be a month away from Stanton. We don't know when these pitchers get back. We haven't talked about the pitching because I'm not even putting any blame on them. Cortez had a rough day yesterday. It happens. It happens to the best of them. You shake it off. It's that team. The game plan that I said the Yankees needed to go into for this series with Texas is exactly what Texas did to us. They made us throw a lot of pitches, and they got into our pen, and they wore us down that way. You look at the starting pitching over the starts. They're in the fourth inning with less than 40 pitches. Like they're swinging at everything first, second pitch. That's why you got so far behind the 8-ball.
To be fair, anyone can mow this lineup down. So you could throw Keigawa out there. He'd probably find a way to throw a complete game shutout against us. That's just how bad this lineup is. And they're trying to think that this is going to be 2019 again, where Mike Talkman stepped up and Cameron Maben stepped up, but when Judge and Stanton were hurt. But the thing is, 2019 Yankees, you had Didi still there. You had DJ hitting with the juice ball. You had Gary Sanchez, who I know everyone hates him, but he had an 800-plus OPS year that year, 34 home runs. Luke Voigt. You still had threats in that lineup despite the injuries to Judge and Stanton. Now, with Judge and Stanton hurt, who do you have? Like Gleyber Torres had his best year in the juice ball year 2019. Now he's just a very streaky – I still think he's good, but he's a very streaky hitter. You don't have those – you don't have a Talkman coming in here. They're hoping that Calhoun can be that guy, but he's not. His best year was also the juice ball year, his only good year in the league. They're hoping that someone can be Cameron Maben, but the problem is whoever we call up here gets hurt. And again, you just look at the way this lineup is. It's bad. It's really bad. So as bad as it is, it's probably going to get worse because we got Cleveland coming up, and they're not playing great, but they're better than we are right now. And thank God for Garrett Cole. That's all I can say because we're undefeated when he starts, and we're like 9-13, I think, when he doesn't. So thank God for Garrett Cole.
Well, let's shout out to everybody in the chat here. We got Pete, my guy, NYY News TV.
We've been on such a rant. We kind of we haven't shouted anybody out yet.
Yeah,
I don't take it away.
And Diggs, good to see you, my guy. Medina, yeah, everybody. Fortune Express, yeah, that's awesome, man. Let's just keep it up. Hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Would really appreciate it. Yeah, well, when you got guys like Aaron Boone going, I really like to compete there. And then you got Brian Cashman who takes no accountability. There's no accountability in this organization, and it starts and ends with that. So there's no accountability, and it's a terrible roster construction. It's just unbelievable how we're in this situation. We're the New York Yankees, man. $285 million doesn't get you much these days, right? Let's look at it. You look at this roster, man. You're amazed that this is $285 million, right? And you look at Aaron Judge, great, awesome. Stanton, we've got half of Stanton, and he's hurt anyway. Got a million infielders, got no outfielders. Like you look through this roster construction, then you look at our starting rotation. Everyone's hurt. Our bullpen, we don't have a closer, and it's a kind of a hodgepodge bullpen anyway. Like this is $285 million. Are we serious here? But let's just call it what it is. This is not a representative. This is not a representative roster. Hal Steinbrenner, I can't really argue that he's cheap, man. I don't think he's cheap. I just think he trusts the wrong people. And I think that's what it all comes down to, man. Like he put his balls on the table. He got the deals done that needed to get done this offseason. But you're still asking your general manager to go and do his job, but he didn't do it because Brian Cashman spent the offseason trying to twist this whole thing into a narrative that it was Yankee fans being a problem and that injuries were the problem, and his process is perfect. Well, like a deck of cards, it's all just collapsed in front of him. But it won't deter him at all because he'll just come up with the next excuse, and the excuse will still be injuries.
The deck of cards thing is actually such a perfect analogy for it.
Yeah.
It's like they put it together and he kept like stacking. It's like, hey, you should stop because it's probably going to collapse. No, the process is, and then it's collapsed. And that's what we have right now. It's completely collapsed. And you think about how much of our payroll is injured right now. Judge, Rodon, Donaldson, Stanton. That's a huge chunk of the payroll right there. Not to mention 10 million of it's going to an inmate. So $6 million to a bench player that can't even hit 200, but he's an infielder playing the outfield. Like, look at where the money's going. And again, the fact that Hal allows someone to spend nearly $300 million and you look at who it's being spent on, yeah, that goes right back to Brian Cashman. It all points back to him, the way he spent the money, because most GMs, yeah, and again, he's gotten some great players because DJ, I love DJ. I love Rizzo. The fact that we have Judge back. I love the Rodon signing. I still think he's going to be really good. And obviously he was able to get Garrett Cole. But he did pass up on some generational players. Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. It keeps going back to those guys. And he still could have spent the money on the big names and did what his best trait is finding like those diamond in the rough type players like Gio Urshela, even Didi. What we gave up for Didi was nothing, and he was great for us. We love Didi Gregorius, but then they let him walk in free agency. As good as he was, they let him walk because they had to sign Garrett Cole and nobody else. So that's the kind of problem that the Yankees offseasons always have is they got to get the one player, and then it's like, okay, well, we can't do anything else because they're spending a lot of money, but they got to be budget conscious. They got to be payroll conscious. But again, we keep going back to look at what Machado and Harper are making combined and look at what we're paying to the likes of Hicks and Donaldson and IKF combined. Like it's not that far off. So you can go back to 2019 and be like, that was a huge missed opportunity because we probably have a World Series if they just got one of those two. And you'd still be able to sign Garrett Cole and re-sign Aaron Judge.
It's the same problem over and over again, and we keep repeating ourselves. But if you brought up Machado, if they would have signed Machado when he was a free agent, it was far enough back from the progress of the prospects, it would not have affected where we are now. Harper, maybe, because, he wanted, him and Judge both were I would think is, well, we already have Judge for right field. We're not, didn't make sense to move Judge to center at that point. We didn't know what Judge was going to be able to do in center field. We all knew he was a tremendous athlete, but you didn't know. So I understand them passing on Harper, but the Machado thing is definitely coming back and is haunting this club.
Yeah, because they passed up on him because Andujar had a really good year in 2018, but then they screwed with him. Like they could have traded him the year before to get Garrett Cole 3 years prior to free agency. They could have had an amazing offseason after the great year that was 2017. You could have gotten Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole and been like, we're the Yankees again, because that's a Yankee-like offseason.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have had to give up too much for Cole anyway, because look at who they wanted. Chance Adams, Clint Frazier, and Miguel Andujar. None of those guys are a Yankee right now. And the only one is playing right now is Andujar. And he just got called up like 2 days ago from the Pirates.
Yep.
And even the Pirates wanted to start him. But they're playing great baseball, so I give them credit. And you could have just had Neil Walker play third for a year. Or you could have used Gio Urshela in 2018 or 2019. I'm sorry, 2018. You could have done whatever you wanted in that year at third base and then signed Machado. And think about that roster. You could, and I'm not even talking about Harper. I'm talking about Machado.
Yep.
It's such a missed opportunity because he wanted to be a Yankee. He wanted to be here. We brought him in for a visit. We didn't bring in Harper, I don't think, but he had his name. They had his picture on the Jumbotron, and they short-armed him. They said, well, we can't really pay you this much. And so he left, understandably so. He said, I'm going to go sign for more money. But he wanted to be a Yankee. And we said, we don't really need you.
Well, listen, we could go on for days about the people that we've missed out on due to poor trade decisions, hugging prospects, overrating prospects, and undervaluing great players. We know that. We've been through it for days, but we're not going to get anywhere with that. So let's focus on moving forward. This is not necessarily a rhetorical question. How do we fix this right now? How can this get fixed? Because right now, we're very close to the season being in peril. Very close.
I don't see a quick fix. There's too many guys on the EIL. The GM is not going to make any moves right now. They're just going. They're going to put their toes in the sand and they're going to stay pat. And they're going to be like, well, until we get everybody, they're going to use the injury excuse. And that's all it is now. It's not an explanation anymore. It's an excuse. Because you didn't construct the roster well enough to not knowing that, you already knew from the last few years how injury prone the Yankees are. And I don't want to pinpoint one player because I don't think that's fair.
Facts.
But when you have your backup players, as when we have the players that we do, when you're relying on, Stanton goes down and you're relying on Calhoun and Cordero, that's such a negative. It's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
Judge goes down. You're relying on the same two people. Like there's no other, you bring up Bowers and they say he's not going to end up on the IL that because see him in the lineup this week, this series. There's no urgency with this team. So why should we expect or hope for a quick fix? It's not coming.
I agree.
I mean, what they could do is try just to cut some of these unnecessary players. Like you can clear a few spots in the 40-man right now. Get rid of Aaron Hicks. I don't care. Pay him whatever it needs to pay him to not play for you. Cut Cordero. Cut Calhoun. Let's see what Dunham can do. At this point, we're already relying on 3 rookies. I know I said the other day I wouldn't necessarily call him up, but go for it. Call up Chaparro as well because it can't be worse. And I know that'd be 5 rookies essentially, but it can't be worse because look at a team like Baltimore. Last year they were relying on a bunch of young players, and it worked. They eventually caught fire, and they got a bunch of wins that no one expected. Look at Pittsburgh right now. Aside from like Brian Reynolds and McCutchen, it's a bunch of young players, and they're just playing together as a unit. Sometimes you need a little injection of youth. So get rid of those guys like Calhoun, Cordero. Maybe you want to keep Calhoun because he's been the better of the 3, but Hicks has to go. Cordero has no business being here. And maybe then, because you need some thump in this lineup. And if Bowers can hit, and if he's healthy, good, because we need his power. We need Chaparro, a guy that can just hit, because that's all he's known for is being able to hit. So if you can't play defense, fine, DH him for all I care. But you need some pop. They desperately need pop. And those are the only 2 guys right now in your system that are close enough to Major League ready that can provide you that. That isn't a free agent signing because there's nobody in free agency, and it isn't a trade because no one's really available for trade yet. So you have to dip into what you have in AAA. You're already using a AAA lineup essentially. Why not add to it? Because you can't get much worse than what Franchi Cordero, Aaron Hicks, Willie Calhoun, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa are offering you right now. Those are guys that are playing almost every day, except with the exception of Cordero because he was sent down when Bowers got called up. But try it. That's the only thing I can think of right now that might provide you a little spark. And then when you get Bader and Judge back, you can figure it out there. That's the only thing I can think of because there's no other realistic option because we're not going to go trade for like a video game. We're not just going to go trade for everybody that we need right now. So you got to dip into what's in Scranton, and then hopefully down the line this season, we'll see Spencer Jones get called up to AA sooner than later. Dominguez should be in AAA by the season's end, and then you look forward to them in the outfield next year, maybe even in September. But right now, Chaparro and Dunham are the only options that can maybe provide you something.
And I hope this is evidence to all the Yankee fans that were like, "Oh, just wait till spring training." I'm sure Brian Cashman will we'll analyze this team in spring training and then make the moves from that. No, because then it's too late. You had all winter to change this team. You had all winter to fix the issues, like having 600 infielders and one outfielder. That made no sense to me, and that had to be an off-season fix. But Brian Cashman sat out the entire offseason. And now we're very much in the regular season, and now we've got teams like the Pirates, who are usually who the Yankees like to steal talent from, are actually much better than we are now. And so, in terms of the standings, and so, there's teams that are still competing. And I mean, it's the trade market isn't open. The trade market doesn't really open until June, till July, and August, and that's it. So until then, we need to somehow stay afloat. Right now, we will be okay with our core of Judge and Rizzo and DJ LeMahieu, and Stanton will be back in 4 weeks' time now. So it'll be a more representative lineup. But in the meantime, to somehow steal some wins between now and then, right? Because this 4-week period is huge for me, right? Now that's just working under the assumption that Stanton's going to be back, right? Because Stanton really is the key to holds this whole thing together, because he is Judge's protection, right? So until then, we need to stay afloat. And I'm with Rob here. We do need to call up another power bat from AAA, Dunham, Chaparro, whichever one, and you need to cut Aaron Hicks, because I do think that Aaron Hicks is a negative. Yeah, it's a negative on this team. We saw it the weekend when he dropped that ball with Garrett Cole pitching, and he just dropped it. Hilariously bad, ridiculous drop where it looked like he closed his eyes and went like that, and the ball hit the edge of his glove and went away. I mean, and Garrett Cole rolled his eyes visibly, and I was like, "Oh God, this fool! Like, what are we doing with this fool?" Right? When he did that, right, that means that it isn't just the fans that can't stand Aaron Hicks, right? That means that there's players going, "How is this guy still on this roster?" Right? And that's why, whether Brian Cashman is in love with him or not, and Aaron Boone is in love with him, I don't care. Like, they can continue their love affair off the field. You need to cut him for the good of this organization. Get rid of that negative seed. Get rid of that negative influence. Get rid of it, right? It'll be like a breath of fresh air. It really will be, because it's just not good for Aaron Hicks, man. Every time he turns up at Yankee Stadium, he's going to get booed because we can't stand him, because he is a disgrace to the Pinstripes, right? And that will continue until he's no longer here, right? And they're going to continue to beat this dead horse. He is a dead horse, right? Completely dead. He's finished. Kaput, right? And it will just be so good if you just cut him, right? Breath of fresh air. We're like, right, let's start refresh here. This is not working, so we're going to try and find something that does work, right? It means that the organization is taking accountability, and it means that they're trying to move forward. And that's all really I'm asking at this current juncture, right? And then, yeah, try Dunham, try Bowers, try Chaparro. Just try something until something works, right, over this next 4-week period, because this next 4-week period is very, very important to staying afloat if you want to even be a wild card team. Because at the moment, the league is the division's looking rather dicey. But even if we want to be a playoff team, we do need to make some serious moves, and that's the only thing that I can think of. Because let's face it, Brian Cashman blew the opportunity in the offseason to make the changes necessary because he didn't want to. He thought he was better than all of us, and he's not.
It's getting to this point where there are so many options, and not every option's available. Where you're grasping at straws just to stay afloat. That just shows how broken this team is.
Mm-hmm.
It's embarrassing. And we could sit here for hours contemplating this move, that move, whatever move it may be. But the GM ain't gonna do jack shit. He's just gonna dig his heels in, and he's like, I'm not going anywhere. He's like that guy. He's like the DiCaprio's character in Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. That's Cashman. And he's not going to make any changes whatsoever because he's that stubborn. And he thinks he's so much smarter than all of us.
The thing is, they celebrated when he said he wasn't leaving. I don't think we
the front offices, because we're not.
Yeah. You know what bothers me is I talked about it last year in the off seasons. We have like an analytical team of like 30 people, which is the most in baseball, and somehow, some way, can't make it work. I don't know how you mess up an analytical person's dream is Joey Gallo, and they screwed that up. Like, he is the prototypical player the Yankees wanted. Just hits home runs and has a high on base, and who cares if he strikes out? And they somehow made him worse.
Yeah,
because he was never that bad for the Rangers. And then maybe just a small market guy, even though Texas is not technically a small market, but the Rangers weren't good.
That's it right. That comes down to having baseball minds. You need to have baseball scouts, baseball old timers, guys that know the game before making massive player decisions like a Joey Gallo. You need to see if these guys actually can handle New York City. And Joey Gallo clearly couldn't, man. He looked unnerved by the whole experience and situation. And that isn't just a case of, let's try it out and see. Like, it was plainly obvious that there were issues behind the scenes where a lot of pressure and he doesn't quite match up to it. And that's why you need experienced scouts that know the game, that know people's personalities. You need a personality that can fit New York City, but that's what's the problem is if you rely on 30 people that just have played Tetris their entire lives and haven't actually played a game of baseball. They don't really know what it takes to play a big league game. They don't know what it means to wear the pinstripes. And Mike Fishman, who runs a lot of this show, he doesn't know anything about this shit. He really doesn't, and that's a lot where these problems come from. We've brought in guys that they just can't hack it at the big league level. They can't hack it at the Yankee level. This is the big time. Some people just can't handle it, and so this process that Brian Cashman champions doesn't work. Your process sucks. Get a new process.
It's going to suck for a long time, And where I think it's time for Mania and Sabian to just exile Cashman, just lock him out of the fucking building, and just get and fix this, because something drastic and desperate has to happen for any hope for this season, because we got a lot of games coming up against freaking the Rays, and they could easily just bury us and just completely run away with it. And with the roster we have right now, it's not it. And yeah, I see the reference to Moneyball. All right, it's when did it work? All right, when did Oakland win their World Series playing Moneyball? They never did. So why did teams think that that's such a great idea? Because it puts more money into their pockets, not the players. That's what that was all about.
Can I interject what Moneyball is?
Yep.
It's to actually help even the playing field against teams like the Yankees.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It was about the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays and the Kansas City Royals and these teams that didn't have the money to compete with the Yankees in free agency. So they used the Moneyball to even the playing field. And it worked to an extent, man. The Kansas City Royals won a World Series. Remember when they didn't have any starters and they just had a bullpen of monsters? And that's how they won a World Series. But then Brian Cashman tried to hop on that train. Didn't really work. Brian Cashman tries to do this Moneyball thing, but he's kind of late to the party a lot of the time. And he just doesn't have it. He's just not that guy. Sometimes it's easier to be the Yankees. Just go, right, I'm putting my balls on the table and my money on the table and my giant wallet on the table. Let's get the best team available and let's put it out on the field. Let's try and make this thing work. I think that would be a lot easier than the Yankees trying to be the smartest guy in the room, because we saw the Yankees try to be the smartest guy in the room in their playoff series against the Rays. Remember? Mm-hmm. They tried a terrible opener. idea. And they tried this, that, and the other thing. And the Rays just laughed at them going, what are you guys doing? You're not smarter than us. And then they lost the series.
Right.
And so, once again, it comes down to Brian Cashman, man. It really does.
The thing is, you can hold on. You can mix the two though, because look at 2019. It was a mix of having a lot of money and using analytics to find players that no one else really thought were anything special, like Gio Urshela, Luke Voigt. Right, Luke Voigt was a minor leaguer, and he was huge for us in 2019. And we won a bunch of games, and obviously ran into that juggernaut that is Houston that we can't beat. But 2019 was a really good year. We won a bunch of games, won a division, got to the ALCS. When even though we lost, it was still overall it was a good year because they had a mix. They had different guys step up. They found players using analytics, but they're trying to replicate that now. But you spend so much time trying to be like the Rays and like other teams. Well, the Rays call up their players when they're playing well, and just cutting Aaron Hicks would send such a message. Like, if you're not going to perform, you're not going to play. The fact that he continues to get chance after chance after chance, and I again, we're a broken record, but he has consistently, just over the last, not even year, but less than a year, attacked the manager, complained, on top of playing very bad, on top of giving up. He can't play defense. He can't hit the ball. He's got zero power anymore, and yet he still gets to play. I don't get it. Cut him. Just cut him, and it can send a message like, well, they're not going to cut the likes of Judge and Cole if they would have struggled, but if they do that, just get rid of a player that clearly doesn't want to be here, send a little bit of a message like, we're going to try to win and using our best players. Just one simple move, and maybe things will get a little bit better. But there's only two options in the minors, like I said. But if you can just cut some of these players that aren't producing, you have nothing to lose DFAing Cordero. If he gets picked up, okay, fine. We're not going to miss him. Calhoun, no one's going to miss him. And we're going to pay Aaron Hicks because no one's going to pick him up on waivers. So, but those three options, and just call up a couple of these kids. I don't even want to call Bauer or Chaparro a kid because he's like 26 or something like that, 27. But give it a shot. See what you can do, because you have no options right now in your major league roster.
By the way, they cut Cordero, they demoted Cordero, and he's one of the team's leaders in RBIs.
Yeah,
I guarantee that his 4 home runs and 11 RBIs is probably more than what Aaron Hicks is going to do this year.
The way he's hitting, probably.
Nope. This team is just laughable. It really is. And with Cleveland, when you got Boone going against Terry Francona, this is going to be interesting. It really is, especially with this lineup. Francona's licking his chops, going, "Nah, here we go." He may not be in Boston anymore, but he enjoys sticking it to the Yankees.
Facts.
All right. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be breaking down what we've seen from this Cleveland series and I can't even say pros and cons or ups and downs. We'll just see what disaster was laid out on doormat for this one. But we appreciate everybody that was in the chat today. Sunil, FJ, LI. We even had the boss, Pete Simonetti, popped in to say hello. Mazza, Fortune, everybody. We appreciate you all. And as always, wear your pinstripes of pride and play hard.